In the early 1980s, Norfolk rugby clubs were asked to enter a league system rather than the previous merit table where all local clubs played each other. Mark, John, Richard and Edward Harrison realised the formation of this new league system could prevent Holt from playing their usual friendly fixtures with clubs that they had an affinity to, in particular Diss Rugby Club. So, initialised by Mark and Benny Gaze and Sam Baskerville from Diss Rugby Club, a plan was hatched. This is the story of the Harrison Cup.
Hello, my name is Christopher John Harrison. I'm the oldest son of Edward Harrison. I am currently the president of Holt Rugby Football Club and have also served many roles in the past. The reason why we're here today is to celebrate and to promote the Harrison Cup, which has been a traditional annual game between Diss and Holt. Now, to my right, I have two founder members and also another member, John Harrison, who also started off and played rugby since the formation of the club. So I have John Harrison on my right, Mark Harrison in the middle, and Richard Harrison on the end. And what we're trying to do today is to let you know what the value of the cup is and how it was started. So we're going to go through a bit of history now. So we're going to talk to you individually about how you started and when you started to play rugby. And first of all, I would like to go to John and say to John, how did you get involved in Holt Rugby Club and why did you get involved in Holt Rugby Club?
Basically, Mark and Richard had been going a couple of years, and then I had a game with the young founders against Holt, and took it from there. So I started a couple of years after them.
Yes. And what various roles? And first of all, what position were you when you played rugby here?
Well, I started playing on the wing because I'd had a lot of injuries at school. But then I returned to prop forward for the rest of my time.
Yes, yes. And then within the club, you know, because I know your wife Sue was involved with the club as well. So what distinctive roles? So were you on the committee? What roles did you have within the club?
I was basically captain of the second 15 for 3 years. So that involved the committee, and then I got involved. I did chairman of the house, chairman, president, and
a lot.
Really, it was a Saturday afternoon life for 30 years.
Yeah, long time, long time.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. And I move on to Mark. Mark, can you explain a bit of your rugby history with the club and how you got involved?
Played at school, and then Bill Green at Warren got me playing at West Norfolk for 3 years, 2 or 3 years, and then everybody started talking about Holt, we were going to start Holt, and I joined Holt.
Yes. Yeah.
And thoroughly enjoyed it all.
Yeah.
Played for a long while in the first team.
Now, am I right thinking, yeah, you are a past first team captain, if I remember, aren't you? Yes. And were you the second captain of the new formed club, or can you remember or not?
Bill Cubitt was the first captain.
Yes.
And I think I was
Willie Donald.
Yes, Willie Donald, and then me.
Yes.
Well, I was about third.
Yes.
Third captain.
Yes. And did you serve on the committees and, you know, as they were formed, you know, as the committee was formed, and you did your time on the committee to help?
Yeah.
And of course your wife Heather would have been involved with match teas.
Yes.
The same with Sue and the same with Pat, basically.
Yes.
So yes, yeah, so it's a really volunteer-based club all the way through.
Very much so.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Richard. Would you just let us know what your involvement was and how you started at Holt Rugby Club, please?
Yeah, one of the best things ever is to learn to play rugby, but we would all say that, I think. Started playing for rugby at school, joined Norwich Rugby Club. Holt wasn't going at that stage.
No.
had 2 or 3 seasons with Norwich, and then there was talk amongst our friends that should we have our own club. Rugby was very formative in those days. There were only about 3 main clubs in Norfolk in those days, which was Norwich, West Norfolk, Norwich Union, and just about it. Diss got formed 2 or 3 years before we did, and North Walsham shortly after that. And then we, amongst many other clubs, started our rugby, playing against each other in those days. And so I think we were formed, Mark, you might remember, by quite a lot of your players from West Norfolk.
Yes.
Came and joined Holt, and
Yeah.
Norwich players came and joined Holt as
Yes. One of them being my father, Edward.
well. He came a little later because he was actually playing for Norwich first
Yes.
at the time.
Yeah.
So he had to continue playing for Norwich because he wanted to be in their first team. I
Yes.
think he came about 2 years later, actually, but that doesn't matter.
No.
He was originally his heart was in the right place.
And then, you know, same question going to John and Mark and to you. When you retired from the game, you took on various responsibilities in the club. So can you just let us know what responsibilities you did, or what?
Well, it wasn't just when we retired, because we all were doing jobs up to that time. Being a young formative club, we were having jobs within the club. So that time, it wasn't until we retired that we actually were given the honour of doing other things. So while we were playing, we were on the committees. We all were together. I happened to be fixture secretary at that time, and then later on became, well, I captained the club as well, if I remember, and then became chairman, and then eventually got the honour of becoming president. So it became part of life.
Yes, yes. And just to focus back on the wives, you know, because talking about my mother, my late mother Jill, who I do know was involved at that time, but how important was that for you three, that they were involved within the club and what you were doing? I mean, you know, John, I think what I'm trying to get to is now it's very difficult to find volunteers because young people are so busy. But your wives were very much involved, weren't they?
Yeah,
And just let me know, what they were doing, basically.
Well, very much so. They had a tea rota, and so there's a lot of camaraderie among the wives to join in, and
Yes.
probably seen us enjoying ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And drive you home.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I'd like to move on now, and what I'd like to do is really talk about the relationship between Holt Rugby Club and Diss Rugby Club, first of all. So, Mark, can I come to you first? What is the relationship between the clubs? And I feel it's not maybe it's as strong as it was, but because it's they're a farming-based rugby club. But how did that happen?
I think that word that you said just now, farming, I think probably had a lot to do with the link between the two clubs. There was a lot of I think you'd agree, Richard, wouldn't you?
Very much so, yeah.
There were a lot of farmers in the Diss Club.
Yes.
And also we just always seemed to be a friendly atmosphere and a good atmosphere to play the game to a good level as hard as we could, and we always enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yeah, we made a lot of friends with this.
Yes, that's true, John.
And it actually carried on after we stopped playing into golf, and we were just another lot of farming friends in Suffolk.
Yes. Yeah.
I think, Chris, a significant thing in those days, there were no league games, there were no cup games, all friendly games. And we played mostly within Norfolk area, into Cambridgeshire a bit and Lincolnshire a wee bit. But we played each other, every team, twice a year at least. Mm-hmm. And we, not only did we meet at rugby games, we met during the week through Young Farmers, etc. Our wives got invited to come to some of the things that we went to. So not only did they come to the rugby club on a Saturday, they brought their children, little tots, to come along, and they were brought up here as well and did teas and lunches and what have you. So it was the whole family being involved as well at the same time.
Was important.
Yeah.
Mark, I'd like to ask you a question. Why did we form the Harrison Cup, or why did you four form the Harrison Cup?
There's 4 people, all rugby players who'd enjoyed their games and had careers, and the reason we went for a cup to be played with this is written on this cup.
Okay, moving on to this. This is quite important, and I'd like to read out the inscription which was put on the cup for when the cup was formed. We hope that this trophy will be played annually between first 15s of the 2 clubs in a non-league, non-cup game. Also, as written, to confirm friendships of the club and time spirit of rugby football. So I think that's quite important. There's a message there, and the message is when the leagues were formed in the early 80s, these gentlemen here decided their friendship with Diss meant a lot to them, and they decided that they would like to continue to play Diss Rugby Club in a cup competition which is not related to league or any Norfolk Cup. Is that correct? Is that really what the essence of it is about?
I would say so.
Yes.
And it was to continue the camaraderie that rugby embraces anyway.
Yes.
But now it's become very much important that league rugby is the thing that people want to focus on. We were wanting it to be the camaraderie being the important thing that lives on to this day, because we're all here because of that, keeping us together and knowing this people in the same mode as ourselves.
Yeah. Now, we've all got many friends in Diss from all walks of life, and we've had friendships with them for a long time, and it's come down into my generation as well, because I was involved in the Harrison Cup and played in the Harrison Cup. So did James, your son, played in the Harrison Cup. Matthew played in the Harrison Cup. I'm not sure Philip did, but Matthew certainly did. And it's also come down a generation as well, because my 2 oldest sons, well, my 3 sons, Joe, Henry and Tom, they've all played the Harrison Cup, and 2 of my sons have also been first 15 captains. So you can see the importance. What we're trying to say is it's this importance of this competition through the years. Gentlemen, I'd like to move on now, and what I'd like to talk about now is today's rugby, modern rugby, how you see the game, first of all. So, Richard, how do you see the game of rugby that's played, not within club level, but international level, compared to when you were playing?
Well, as I said a few moments ago, when we first started playing, it was all friendly rugby. When competitions came in, then it became more the focus on winning and getting better for the whole scenario of rugby, to get up in the league and to get more satisfaction from that. And so we played it in a different kind of way.
Yes.
If you look at us today, 3 gentlemen who are not big fat lads, who are strong. He's a prop, we're wing forwards. And this modern day rugby player is physically a big guy, training like anything, and the game is much more taken much more seriously, even at the club level than it used to be in our day.
Okay.
And so that's the legacy we had, and we'd like to see that continue in a friendly way, behind the leagues that we play, and make it important that actually the friends that you made in those days will be your friends in 40 years' time, as we have been. Because that's something we've gained out of rugby, that actually these young people won't have that, I don't think, unless they actually form friendships between different clubs.
Thank you. John, you come up to, all 3 of you come up to the lunches regularly, and you watch what's going out on the pitch. How do you see, the 3 of you really, not just John, but I'd like John to answer, how do you 3 see Holt Rugby Club today? Do you enjoy what you see? Are you pleased with what you're seeing at the rugby club?
Yes, there's a very good standard of rugby. obviously the leagues, it's important to win the leagues, and there's a lot of competition to get to the top of the league and go up or whatever. And just at the moment, it seems to be going very well. And there is a lot of friendship. It's not just all farmers, or mainly farmers like it used to be, but there's all walks of life, and people like to get up here and get out and play and enjoy the camaraderie together.
Thank you. I think the other big thing I think has happened since even myself, you know, the girls, the ladies, the wives, the partners are getting more involved. They're enjoying the lunches, they're enjoying coming up here and socialising as well as we all are. And when we were playing, it wasn't quite so much that. There was always seemed to be a male-orientated club, but now it's very much open to families. We've been trying to explain today the Harrison Cup and the significance of it and the friendship between ourselves and Diss. And hopefully we're trying to put across why it was started. And I think it's worth focusing on that again. It was started because we wanted to maintain a friendship with one club, whichever league we were both in. So there was an opportunity that we could carry on playing against each other and also to maintain the friendships we'd already had. Because when leagues were formed, none of us knew where each club would be. Is that fair to say, the three of you?
Absolutely right, yeah.
So just to put it in context, you might like to know that the Harrison Cup has been won 17 times by Diss and 14 times by Holt. We've had a 2-year break because, let's say, of COVID. 1 year was for COVID. The other year was that we were both involved in league games and we couldn't actually arrange the fixture. Now, moving on to that, the difficulty nowadays with modern rugby and the way that our players and our club are playing now is the intensity of the matches has really strengthened so much that when they have a free fixture or a gap in the fixture list, they want time off. And personally, looking at my son, I can see why. But coming up, on the 10th of December, we have the Harrison Cup, and we're having a joint Harrison Cup and a league game because we are now in the same league as Diss. So we are going to be playing for the Cup, but we're also playing for league position, which isn't what the spirit of the Cup was formed by you three and Edward Harrison. But demand dictates that this is the way we've got to go. So how do you three feel about that as being played as a doubleheader? So Richard, for instance, how would you feel about
I'd go along with that. I think that's the only way we're going to see it continue. The unfortunate thing may not happen if we won't all end up in the same league. So it won't always be that we can play a league game as well as the cup game.
Exactly.
But at least this year we can, and yeah, that's a good start.
Yes.
I've already written this one.
Well, it was. Mark, your view?
I'd say exactly the same.
Good. Yeah. So you've got no problem with it being a double header, so to speak?
No, I knew there was a little bit of not quite the same feeling for the club, for the cup, as there has been. But perhaps this will resurrect it.
Yeah. John?
I think it's a good idea, and I think it'll bring back the competition between the clubs, and hopefully that'll.
Let's hope it will.
Yes.
It'll help it carry on.
Thank you. So obviously, as Richard pointed out, it's going to become more difficult if we get promoted or Diss get promoted, and then I think we're going to have to make a big effort to play this and continue to play this as a friendly fixture. And I'm hoping that this will carry on in the new generation or the younger generation and forward. So that was what we'd like to see, isn't it, ideally?
We'd all like to see that.
We'd all like to see that. So finally, I'd like to thank the three of you for coming along, because I think this has been important for us as a club, and just to explain why we formed the Harrison Cup. So thank you for coming.